You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's story isn't from a tourist or a hunter. It's from a man who lived in Oregon's Cottage Grove and spent countless hours in the thick forest. But what he encountered out there wasn't just another creature. This was something from the legends. He saw Bigfoot, heard its calls, and found its prints in the mud. But that wasn't all. Curtis also encountered strange, unexplained lights in the sky and even an alien-like being. This is a first-hand account of a man who found more than he bargained for in the woods, and it's a journey that will leave you wondering what's truly out there. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Curtis today. Curtis is an individual I got connected to, and he's had some interesting things happen in the Cottage Grove area of Oregon. I believe we were connected after the Daryl Adams episode that I did. And this takes place back in the mid-1990s, so it's going to be very interesting. But welcome to the show, Curtis. How's it going, man?
I'm okay, Jeremiah. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's starting to get warm out here in Iowa. I can't complain. The weather's good for now. I'm in South Florida, so yeah, I know what the warmth is. Oh, that's nice. Maybe I'll have to it's been a while since I've been on to Florida, but it sounds pretty warm down there. Maybe I'll have to do that someday. But you know, Curtis, I've been wanting to connect with you for a while. I love talking to people about this area of Oregon, this Cottage Grove area over to Oak Ridge. We were talking about that before the show, but feel free to take us back to this time frame of the mid 1990s, and if you can maybe share, were you living here in the Cottage Grove area at that time?
Actually, what happened was I was living in Washington, about 50 miles south of Mount St. Helens. Then I went down to visit my sister in Cottage Grove and ended up getting some work and a job, and visitation turned into a couple of years of working and visiting and being in Cottage Grove. It's pretty much that.
That's fantastic. So you became very, very familiar with how that area is. This isn't a thing where you were just driving through. You became pretty familiar, I would imagine.
Exactly. I lived in town.
Gotcha.
I lived in Cottage Grove.
Gotcha.
But was always going out to the mountains and hills. I mean, all my friends and everybody, we all camped and hunted and, go out there and shoot guns and stuff like that. I mean, we're always in the hills.
Now, you spent some time down there. Did you start to realize really quick that there's something going on out there in the woods? Were you hearing stuff like, oh, so-and-so saw something, maybe it was a Bigfoot, or was that stuff not really talked about in the 90s?
No, that it was not talked about, and Bigfoot never crossed my mind in my entire life. Even when I lived in Washington, it didn't. My first experience was I was at a friend's house working on a woman's car for a van. Got her van going, and she said, well, do you think it'll run? I said, yeah, let's put it on the road and test it. And we went to where I think Jeremiah is Drain, the town Drain.
Gotcha.
But I can't remember. It was west, what I believe is west of Cottage Grove. And this was my first experience. So we get to either her brother's farm or her uncle's farm. I don't know. She wanted to take a shower and pack a bag of clothes or something. I don't know. And anyway, waiting for her, I saw a rifle by the front door. So I grabbed that rifle, made sure it was loaded. And there was a little dog, like a little hunting dog type thing. And me and him just took a hike up into the hills, up into the mountain. Well, the hill behind them. And we got up in there, me and that dog, and I heard a bunch of, I don't know, branches breaking and something was running. Okay, so I crouched down and the dog stopped right next to me, and I crouched down and I'm looking up the hill, and in between the brush, through the brush, I saw something brown run past. Okay, never had Bigfoot in my mind or nothing. Figured, it's either a deer or an elk. Well, me and that dog got to that point. Like, man, this is a ditch. It's like a little creek or reservoir, or not reservoir, but a ditch running alongside the hill, whatever. Okay, so we're walking and we follow that, and we finally get to the end of that, and there's like I don't know, a 20-foot diameter mud puddle, a big mud puddle. Okay, so big deal, whatever. I go to grab a cigarette. I'm lighting up a cigarette, and I happen to look down, and brand new, there's a print right at the end of my feet, my boots. There's a perfect 100% Bigfoot print. And then next to that was a skinny one, the same length, only it was skinny, which I've never seen anybody in the community have a skinny one like I saw. And then my jaw dropped, my heart rate went sky high. I looked at the dog was shivering, and me and that dog split. We ran out of there as fast as we could. Something wasn't right, and then I knew, wow, they exist. They're for real. It was brand new, the print. And we ran out of there, and we got to the open spot. That's all I remember. That's all I wanted to do was get to this. It was like a cut down hayfield behind her farm. And all I wanted to do was get out in that, get out of the woods. And we got out there, me and that dog, we ran and stopped, started walking. And then I heard a huge limb. I could tell it was huge because it took forever to crack. So finally it's cracked, and it's cracked, it's cracking, and it's cracking, and it's cracking. And finally it broke and hit the ground. And when it did, it thudded. And me and that dog just ran back to the farm. And my blood pressure was sky high, and I was scared. Something just happened, and I just saw those prints. And I got in there, and I told Linda, I said, I don't know what's out there, but there's something really big out there. She goes, you saw a Bigfoot, didn't you? I said, I don't know if I saw one, but I saw the prints, and I heard this big, huge branch break. And she goes, yeah, they're out there. She acted like it was no big deal. Then, in retrospect, I figured out, I think what I did see that was brown running through the brush was a Sasquatch.
Hmm.
I don't think it was a deer or an elk, because when I got to the point where that ravine was, I would have never saw it because it was too deep to be for me to see a deer or an elk. So, oh boy, then that's when it all started, Jeremiah. I was scared, but really intrigued, man. It's when I got addicted. It started to turn into my addiction to hunt for them and find them and look for clues.
Oh, wow. So
And then,
you really went down the road after that.
oh man, hardcore, yes. Yes, I was full-blown addicted. Matter of fact, every time I went to the woods out there, every time. Well, this is throughout, more experiences, a few more experiences on the other side of the county. I think it was Lane County. I can't remember. Then I started seeing more. I started having more experiences, and I just kept on teaching myself. And then I figured out, start looking up. Everybody looks down for prints. Start looking up and look for something that's abnormal that you're not going to see up. And then usually 9 times out of 10, when you look down, you will see prints.
I gotcha. So that is so smart, Curtis. So you're looking up, scanning the horizon through the trees, finding the abnormal stuff. Then you look down and you see the prints. Wow.
I wrote down a couple notes here because I can't remember. Let's see. Oh, the mining shack. We went there to shoot guns. Well, I think it's a mining shack. It's either old mining shack or a logger shack. I mean, that's the country I was in, logging. Went there to shoot guns, and around that shack, there was all kinds of prints. I mean, a lot. And they are what they are. I'm not making this up. Nobody makes this stuff up. I call them hills. I guess people, they'll say they're mountains, but I call them hills because I'm used to, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, Mount Adams. Those are mountains. But anyway, so I'm running down, and I fell and rolled down and got hurt. I finally made it to a logging road and finally landed, pulling branches out of my eyes and off me and brushing myself off. And I happened to look over, just by chance. There was a tree growing sideways out of the hill. And the side of the hill, or by the road, in the side of the hill, it was growing, I don't know, 45 degrees out the side. But anyway, at the bottom by the trunk, there was like a hole in it where you could like get in there in the trunk of the tree. And I happened to look over, and I saw an alien. There was an alien squatted down, crouched down in there. It had blue, like a bluish transparent skin. Its butt was touching the ground, but its knees were above its head. I'm guessing that thing, if it was to stand up, I'm guessing it would have been 15 foot tall or close to it. It had like a triangle head, kind of. Well, once my brain recognized that and saw that, and I had that, I ran faster than what I was running before. I was falling down that hill. And I had mentioned that to Daryl, and Daryl goes, yeah, I know what you're saying.
I know he's seen things, I believe. When he was on my show, he talked about that. He was seeing stuff like that. Yeah, that's wild.
He had sent me a picture of a portal off the side of a tree. And he also sent me a picture of what he believes and I believe is an alien, like what I saw. Holding, or one hand has a light coming out of his hand or something. So that's when I see all this stuff, Jeremiah, and when I see other people know what I'm talking about, that I'm not crazy, it's like they saw the same thing I saw, you know? I'm freaking. And yes, it was all in Cottage Grove. I even called the Eugene College one time.
Oh, really?
I said, I told them I need to talk to somebody, because there is some stuff that you people need to check out down here in Cottage Grove. And I can't remember who, like I said, who I was talking to or whatever, but they're like, what? I said, you need to come investigate Sasquatch down in Cottage Grove. Whoever I was talking to laughed and hung up. That was that.
Curtis, when you ever would go out and do your investigations, would you have issues with electronic devices? Or I guess in that time, you probably didn't have a lot of electronic devices, correct? When you're out?
No.
Okay.
I never had a cell phone. I never had a camera. The only thing I had in my pocket was a little 25 pistol, which would have done absolutely nothing. But it was just something in my pocket. But I never, like I said, never had a camera, cell phone, nothing. Now that I think about it, when I look at what's going on now, back in mid 90s, I would have liked to hooked up with any of these researchers back then. I turned myself into a researcher, and nobody else, they all thought I was crazy.
Exactly. Because at that time, I mean, you had people like Peter Byrne and Henry Franzoni was working more the Mount Hood area, but he would come down to Oak Ridge in the 90s. And that's right. Just wild. You were out there by yourself. Now, I've never had to do this before. And sometimes when you talk about Bigfoot stuff, really weird stuff happens with technology. I don't know if you've ever heard that, or I've never had this particular thing happen where my recorder just went bonkers, and I look over and it's not working. Now, the last 5 minutes we did get, but I've never had to ask someone to tell something over again. Would you be able to share how you saw the female and the baby visually, and then the one in the tree, and then the two on the logs? I apologize. I do not know what happened to my equipment.
Okay, well, the one, like I said, my friend was down in that gully area, hole area, clipping those branches off those bushes. And probably, I don't know, 80 to 100 feet behind them, the female holding the baby popped out from behind the tree. And then a second later, the other one, which I think is a male, popped out from another tree. And then that's when I started yelling at Bill, hey, they're right freaking behind you. And that's when he yelled back to me, don't move, or don't, let me finish doing what I'm doing. I don't want to do nothing bad, spook them or scare. He didn't know. We didn't know. But those are the first two foreshore sightings that I had right then and there at that moment. I was up by where the boulder was, up on the trail, up on the cliff.
Right.
He was down in the hole. Okay, and I saw those. And then when we left, like I said, got in the truck and noticed in the rearview mirror one tree shaking up the hill. Everything else calm. And at the top of that tree, and like I said before, you know, what are Douglas firs? Anywhere from 100 foot to 200 foot. They're tall trees. I'm in the forest. That one tree was shaking, so therefore I grabbed my binoculars that I zoom in on, and there he's sitting on that limb, that branch, and breaking another one right above him. And that I saw very, very distinctive because I had binoculars. And like I said, that's the one I did see his teeth because he was like, I don't know, screaming. He wasn't howling. He was mad. And I did see his teeth, and they're kind of like ours, only they've got bigger, or that one had bigger canines. He had big canines. So,
and
that was that one.
Thank you, Curtis. And you had said when we were talking before the tech issue happened that if you had to say if it felt either and looked either ape-like or human-like, you had some thoughts about that.
I'm going to go more human-like. Facial, with all of them, more human. Not gorilla or monkey. More human. A flatter face.
A flatter nose?
Compared.
Yeah.
Yes, compared to a flatter face compared to a gorilla or a monkey.
Gotcha.
More human. More human.
You had also mentioned an interesting account that I want to make sure is documented, where you had been you took your flashlight and shined it into the woods on something.
Yeah, the two of them laying on that tree going across the creek. Yeah, there was two of them laying right there. Like I said, like spooning, you know, like, you know, a guy and a girl spooning.
Right.
That's what they look like on that log. And the weird thing is, you know, a lot of animals, you know, some of them, their eyes glow red when you shine light on them, on their eyeballs. These were like a glowing yellowish green that night for them two Sasquatch. And like I said before, there's another, I wasn't by myself.
Curtis, spending so much time.
I got more. I got more stuff.
Oh, I know, and I'm just thankful that we got the tech figured out. We're good. I apologize again for that. It's never happened on the show, but you know, I do. Before you continue with your notes, I want to ask you real quick. There's so many people in this area that have reported they go out looking for Bigfoot in this area. They spend time in there, and then weird stuff happens to them. sometimes physical issues. Is that anything you ever experienced spending time in there?
I can tell you one thing that I've experienced.
Okay.
Nothing like what you just asked me.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since my Cottage Grove days, I mean, it was only a few years, and I ended up leaving. It seems to me like this is going to sound psycho. It seems to me like I have some kind of special power. Like, how do I put it? Reading people's minds, knowing what's going to happen before it happens, yada, yada, yada. I mean, these aren't,
Yep.
I've told my family and my friends, these aren't coincidences. I mean, when it happens multiple times every day, that's not a coincidence. It's like I got some kind of, I don't know, power or something. And it all started from then. I don't want to sound like a nut.
No, you're not.
I'm trying not to sound like a nut, man, but
you are
I'm
not.
telling you.
Because this kind of thing is repeated over and over to me over the last few years. And my theory is that being in certain areas or having contact with these individuals does unlock something within either the human brain or humans in general. And I feel crazy saying that, but people keep saying it over and over in their encounters, and it is so interesting.
That's freaking awesome, Jeremiah, because I've never known that till you just now told me. And that makes me feel a hell of a lot better that I'm not the only one.
Can you give an example of how that works? Like, someone's going to say something before they do, or how this plays out in your life?
That happens all the time. Gotcha. Knowing what somebody's going to say before they do, that's constant. That's like almost every conversation. So I never really took that, to the extreme, because a lot of people are kind of like that, I guess. You know what somebody's going to say before they say it. But man, it's like all the time with me, constantly. And that's just one thing. Just life in general, walking down the block, walking down the street right here, I mean, it's hard to explain. I can't explain it. It's like I know stuff without knowing it. It's weird.
Do you feel like
maybe?
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you feel that at any point there was anything, or I won't lead it. Do you feel like there was ever any communication happening in any way?
With my experiences?
Yeah, maybe any communication between yourself and Bigfoot in any way?
As far as I can remember, I don't believe so. But physically, between me and them, it's like my friend Bill always said, they're allowing us. I'm like, why are we the only ones that are seeing this stuff? And he's like, they they're allowing us. So there was some kind of an intimate type, maybe that's the wrong word, but some kind of I wanted to see them and they were checking me out too.
Curtis, I think you're onto something really interesting there. Something I've noticed from your account so far is that you weren't an individual that was going out there trying to take photos or video or record things. How would you say your intention was when you were out there trying to have a connection with these creatures?
That was me personally. I was addicted. I wanted more and more and more. Matter of fact, if I could have talked to one, I would have. I was flabbergasted. I can't believe that I'm seeing a myth that for all these years, people have been saying it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. You're a whack job, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not. It does exist. I've got all kinds of proof, but I can't prove it. You know what I mean?
So your proof is in what you experienced, I take it.
I'm sorry?
Your proof, saying that your proof would be in the things that you experienced in the stories you can share, correct?
That's the only proof I have.
Right.
But see, I don't have to tell or prove it to anybody else. I know it for a fact.
Absolutely.
I've already seen it. I've already experienced it. I've seen it. Everything that I've told you is just, I wrote down notes. Those are just some of what's going on. And it's like what I just said with Bill. They're allowing us, or me, for sure, 100%, to see everything. Prince is a joke. Broken trees is a joke. Structures is a joke. All that kind of stuff. That's like that's a dime a dozen to me, and everybody else, other researchers too. Like I said, Daryl's had some hardcore experiences, and what's his name? Tobe?
Yeah, Tobe Johnson.
Tobe?
Tobe, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a great guy.
Yeah, him too.
Curtis, was there ever a time you feel that you were out there and things went too far?
Say that again.
Do you feel like there was ever a time when you're out there in the field and having interactions and things went too far, or was everything always manageable for you?
No, what went too far is when I walked through that arch and saw those pine needle mounds. That was I thought maybe I crossed the line there. Bill too. Maybe we crossed the line. We didn't know what it was. Was this a burial ground? What is this? And then 10, 15 minutes later, I see an alien. Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to tell you about. I was helping my brother-in-law. This is in Cottage Grove in town. I was helping my brother-in-law. This was at nighttime. Work on a car. We were doing a car thing, and I happened to notice like the North Star, but it wasn't the North Star, but it was a bright light up in the sky. And I'm like, that's not a tower light, because white tower lights flash. This wasn't flashing. It was just a bright light. Okay, yeah, big deal. Okay, looks like the North Star. Well, it wasn't the North Star because I don't know, 2, 3 hours later, I look out there again, and both the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper had already moved. They're across the sky, but that light is still in the same spot. And I couldn't figure that out, man. I'm like, how is the rest of the sky moving, but that light's not? And then, I don't know, maybe it was 11 o'clock at night. I called Johnny out of the garage. I said, man, dude, I said, remember when I showed you that light? He goes, yeah. I said, how many hours ago was that? He's like, I don't know, 2. And I said, look at it. He goes, it ain't moved. I said, exactly. What is it? There's some strange stuff out there in Nevada and Oregon.
Absolutely. 100%. The Pacific Northwest and Nevada is extremely, extremely weird. Do you ever feel drawn to go back to that area of Oregon?
Always, every day, especially ever since I joined your thing, and uh, Daryl man and Tobe and all that. That's all I think about anymore, man. I wish I could I wish I could win the lottery and buy all the equipment and go back out to Cottage Grove. It might be empty. Maybe they all moved, but I don't care. I still want to go out there and do it.
Curtis, it's weird, but I hear that same sentiment repeated by a lot of people that get drawn back to these areas. And myself, I feel, the past year, I feel drawn back to the area in Oregon that I had stuff happen out in Oak Ridge on 58. And it's very weird. It draws you back in. But you're not in Oregon right now. You're in, well, we'll just say you're not in Oregon. What made you...
I'm down in Florida.
Right. What made you leave the area? Was there a time in your life where you stepped away from looking at these Bigfoot related things?
No, it's always been in my head. The reason I left the area was because I went back home, which is an hour south of Chicago. Started a new job, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Got back with old girlfriend. Okay, that didn't work out. Ended up getting married. Okay, yeah, okay. Now starting my new life. And I had told my wife, my new wife, my experiences. And of course, she thought I was crazy, cuckoo. A couple other people. So I just decided keep my mouth shut. Just like Bill always said, just keep your mouth shut. Well, anyway, then I ended up buying my first computer. I think that was in 99 or 2000. I can't remember. So it was my first computer. I finally got a computer. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've got the internet. What can I look for? And bam, let's check out Bigfoot. And I punched that in. And then, man, I realized I'm not the only one. There's sightings everywhere. There's almost sightings in every state. Almost. Or at least 1 or 2 in every state or whatever. And then there I was jacked up again, man, all back in it. I joined, what's that, BBFO or something? I can't remember.
Oh, the BFRO.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I just started getting into everything again. and then left it alone for a while, then got back into it again, and then left it alone for a while. And then when I saw your program with Daryl, now I'm back in it. I can't leave it alone. It's part of my life. I'll die with this. Everything that I've told you today is 100% a fact. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I used to tell my wife. What do you think, that I sit here and just I'm making all this stuff up? That'd make me more of a whack job than it being real.
Why did you feel it important to finally come out and share things that happened out in Oregon?
Oh, with you?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing everybody else doing the same thing. And like I said, I'll say it again. Daryl just, he lit the fire for me. He's from Cottage Grove, and he's basically seen everything that I've seen, if not, and also more, in the same area, Cottage Grove area. So I just felt that I had if he did it, I got to tell my story too. Because everything he said is correct.
Absolutely. So you're saying that you think that a lot of the things you experienced were in the same area that Daryl has had experiences specifically?
Well, all I can say is Cottage Grove is not a big town.
True.
Or at least back then it wasn't.
Yeah, I got you.
I mean, but the area, of course, is, because, you're in the middle of the foothills, the Cascades and the Blue Mountains or whatever is out there by Cottage Grove. I don't care if Daryl was 30 miles away from me. To me, I'm still going to say that's the same area.
Absolutely. And your accounts and their accounts, Daryl's accounts, do have some really big similarities. It is fascinating. Curtis, I want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you had notated down.
Okay, the light I already told you about. The bones. The bones that I found must have been an elk. Anyway, that elk was tore apart. And yeah, it had to have been the elk, because it wasn't a deer, it was bigger. That thing was tore apart. I found them bones, and I grabbed some bones, and I brought them back to town to my sister and brother-in-law's to give to the dog. And that dog, when I took him out of the back of the truck, that dog ran away. He didn't want anything to do with them bones. I said, "Come here, man, it's a freaking bone." No, he ran to the other side of the yard. He smelt something that I didn't know anything about. That was pretty odd. Give a dog a bone and he runs from it.
Right. Wow.
No, that's probably about it, Jeremiah.
Curtis, thank you for coming on the show and for helping to expand what people know about encounters in the Cottage Grove area of Oregon. It's been extremely enlightening, and just thank you for chatting today.
No problem, man. I enjoyed it. It was kind of cool. I was nervous at first because I can't remember everything, but it all kind of fell in place.
Just want to take a minute to say thank you truly for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Curtis's experiences in Cottage Grove show us that Bigfoot is not just folklore, it's a mystery that's still waiting to be solved. So big thanks to Curtis for sharing his incredible and sometimes frightening journey with us. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future episodes, and share this one with your friends. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to hit follow and leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and keep these stories alive. And if you or anyone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, whether in Oregon or beyond, email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your story and maybe feature it in a future episode. Also, Sasquatch Summerfest is coming up on July 11th through the 12th in Oak Ridge, Oregon. Bigfoot Society listeners can use code BFS to get a 2-day pass for the price of a 1-day. You won't want to miss this gathering of researchers and enthusiasts that is unlike any other. Thank you again for being part of the Bigfoot Society, and until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your instincts, and always ask what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.